Fred Matiang'i is meeting university chancellors at the convention.
University sector in our country. Secondly, I think I have already indicated to some of our development partners that new funding and new conversations that we are having in the Ministry of Education on supporting university education in our country will include putting resources aside to support critical role players in the university sector, like the chancellors, the chairs of council, and the vice chancellors, so that we can develop our capacities as we deal with this sector that is growing and becoming dynamic every day. Those of you, and there are quite a number of you in the room, who have been vice chancellors before, you understand definitely that we are operating in not just a dynamic environment, but the university sector in our country is faced with daunting challenges. An increasing demand for university education, an ever-challenging decline in the resources we have, even from the exchequer, to support university education. And of course, the very taxing demand on university managers to seek for ways and means of funding and supporting quality university education. And as we move forward, therefore, it is necessary that we constantly have these conversations as we go forward to ensure that we effectively expand this sector. So I'll say a few words before we open this meeting. The reason why we wanted this meeting, and in our conversations with the chancellors and with the Commission for University Education, is so that we can gather together, such as we are doing here, to share experiences and to reflect on the sector that we are calling university education in our country. We face very fundamental challenges, and if we were to be very honest, some of the experiences we have had recently regarding university education require us to pause and reflect on how we are going to take this sector to the next level. I recollect that the last time we met with the vice chancellors and chairs of council, Professor Chancellor Zimbai, the Vice Chancellor of Catholic University, made a point that has continuously played at the back of my mind. 50 years ago, or more, when we became independent, one of our objectives as far as education is concerned was to develop an education sector that would enhance national integration. How is it that over 50 years later, we have a chronic problem of public institutions that we have set up as universities that essentially are village enclaves? How is it that over 50 years later, if we were to be very honest with one another, there are so many of our universities where you can walk in and have probably a full Senate meeting in one local language? How is it that, how did we get here, and what actually happened? And how did we get to this point? And this is an issue that we now need to discuss very candidly and figure out whether, A, we have failed in the policies we developed to support education so that we have been unable to realize the national objectives of our national education system, or B, we had good objectives but we have not implemented them effectively to give us the education system that we require that will take us to the next century. And many other questions that we need to ask ourselves as we go forward. So it is necessary that we have this meeting that we are having here. If I may reflect for a moment, sessional paper number 14 of 2012 outlined the objectives of university education, or what as government and all of us needed to work on. Expanding access and equity in university education, ensuring, for example, that we improve the quality and relevance of university education, addressing issues of financing university education, enhancing human resource for the support of university education, and finally strengthening the governance, management, and institutional structures in university education in our country. Have we realized these 5 objectives as we go forward? Well, the sessional paper is about 4 years old, and as we keep implementing the higher education sector, we have to ask a question against each one of these objectives. Have we achieved access to university education? are we on our way to improving the quality and relevance of our university education as we go forward? Have we addressed the question of financing university education? The nightmare of every vice chancellor here is managing to get enough resources to run the programs that we want to run in the university successfully. How can we creatively look for ways of addressing the issue of financing university education? And of course, enhancing human resource for the support of university education. Every time I have a conversation with the Vice Chancellor, they will tell you about how many of their staff members are part-timers and in how many universities they are part-timing. And therefore, of course, the $6 million pedagogical question is learning and teaching actually happening, as it were, if you have one lecturer or one professor teaching in 5 universities? Is learning and teaching going on? I met someone last week who told me they have 2,180 scripts to mark for students of law. All of you people are educated, very well exposed people. Is learning and teaching going on? Who on earth has the capacity to mark and examine 2,180 students and tell you convincingly that they are actually giving you qualified people? Because at graduation, usually, our deans stand up and they go to the microphone and say, Mr. Chancellor, sir, or Madam Chancellor, I am presenting these people to be awarded degrees and certificates for which they have been trained, examined, and qualified. 2,180 in one particular class. Has that actually happened? Are we telling the truth that we have trained those people and we have effectively examined them and we know they are truly qualified? And then the ramifications of these issues to the country and to the development of our nation as we move forward. I dare say this, that I intend, Madam Chairperson of the Chancellors and the Chairperson of the Commission for University Education, that this forum will provide us an opportunity to have a very candid and honest conversation one with another and answer the question, how can we ensure that we enhance quality education in our universities? Many of you, I can see very prominent people in our midst from the private sector who have made very significant contributions. My good friend, Titus Naikuni, Mr. John Simba, and all of you people who have made tremendous contributions to the private sector in Kenya. Every time I meet private sector people, they raise the same complaint. They ask me, how is it that we're interviewing people we feel are actually not qualified even for the placements that they are seeking in our institutions? We must be able to have a honest conversation even with the private sector of our country. And if we do not have that conversation, we cannot lie to ourselves that we are developing an education system that is going to support the development of our country. And that's why we have to look at these 5 objectives in sessional paper number 12 and answer the question, are we on our way towards achieving them? If the answer is no, the next reasonable thing to do is ask the question, how can we get onto the right path as we move forward? I would like to say this. As government, we are committed with the constraints and the challenges that we have with resources to ensure that we support the development of university education in our country. We have taken certain decisions on which I don't think we will go back, like ensuring that for our own country's development and for the sake of the growth of the sector, we must now be very careful about how we draw the dichotomy between private and public universities. Because the world over, people look at how you develop your human resource capacity and the human resource base. And private entrepreneurs or private enterprise in higher education is critical to the development of university education in our country. We have to do whatever it takes to support private investors who come into the university sector. That is why COOPs will tell us the students who have qualified, and they will be given government loans, and they will make the choices on which universities to go. So that if they find a course in a private university and they are happy with that course, they should be able to go into that program in a private university. That provides an opportunity for competition. That will provide an opportunity for us to deal with the right numbers even in our public universities. No one should frown at that. That is how civilized environments have been run recently, and we have a huge amount of experience on this particular issue. We have to allow and support private enterprise in university education in our country as we move forward. It is not just necessary, it is absolutely important for the objectives that we have as a nation as we move forward. And going into the future, therefore, I hope that when we have conversations, private investors in university education and those of us who are offering university education, predominantly because of the resources we get from the exchequer, we will seamlessly engage and ensure that we continuously work on a framework of developing programs. On this particular one, I hasten to ask the Commission for University Education to operationalize and support universities to understand the credit transfer mechanism and bring it closer to our society so that I can go to USIU and do some courses, and if I would like to complete my degree at the University of Nairobi, that is fine. I should be able to transfer my credits from USIU to the University of Nairobi and vice versa. I should be able to transfer my credits from the University of Nairobi to University of East Africa, Baraton, or to Catholic University and continue in that kind of manner. Because that way then you allow for a seamless movement. I expect, for example, going into the future, that we will develop stronger joint partnerships in our universities between public and private universities. We have already seen that in certain cases, when we have allowed this to happen, we've come up with fantastic programs, many of them spearheaded by some of our private universities that are doing very well. We must walk away, my good friends, from the idea of thinking that those of us who are offering university education with support from exchequer resources are more privileged or should be more privileged than those of us who are investing as private entrepreneurs in university education. Because you know this happens everywhere. Every time people ask me this, I tell them Harvard is not a public university, Princeton is not a public university, Stanford is not a public university. You can get support or a voucher, the US government can give you a loan, and you can go to Harvard and do your course there. So what's wrong with us supporting our children who want to do their studies at Strathmore University or USIU or Catholic University or Daystar if they have found a program that is being offered at Daystar that we're not offering in our public universities? Let us open up, liberalize, and ensure that university education is now going to be offered on a competitive, equitable plane in order for us to advance as a society. Otherwise, if we remain huddled in some of the idiosyncrasies we've had in the past, we are not moving. We are losing out the opportunities that we have, especially those that are being provided by private players in the university sector. I want to say 2 or 3 other things before I conclude my remarks in this segment. One, we need to look at the issue of financing university education. I need to be candid with you and tell you that I am aware, and the PS and I have been reviewing this, that there's some of our institutions that don't think we should use the DUC, the differentiated unit cost. How else will we fund university education in the country without a scientific basis of placing resources? How can we give you money just because of what you have said without paying?
All right, that's the CS for Education, Fred Matiang'i. He is kind